let's get to mainstream media coverage over the debate that we all watched last night. I'm going to give you my thoughts on it. I got a lot of them.
The vice president repeatedly goading Donald Trump, trying to get under his skin.
And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
The former president taking the bait.
She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go.
But Trump throwing the heat right back at her.
Wait a minute. I'm talking now. If you don't mind, please. Does that sound familiar? She went out.
One of the most contentious exchanges of the night on abortion. Harris trying to capitalize on Democrats' advantage on the issue.
One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government, and Donald Trump certainly, should not be telling a woman what to do with her body. I have talked with women around our country. You want to talk about this is what people wanted? Pregnant women who want to carry a pregnancy to term, suffering from a miscarriage, being denied care in an emergency room because the healthcare providers are afraid they might go to jail, and she's bleeding out in a car in the parking lot. She didn't want that.
But she also dodged when asked if she would support any abortion restrictions. While Trump...
Bro, that was like probably one of her peak on direct policy, on like direct attacks against Donald Trump. So much of last night. Holy f, dude. Another one of your moments yesterday got 47,000 likes. What the
Springfield. In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. The people that came in, they're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country, and it's a shame. As far as
it's fucking ridiculous, dude. Dude, I'm Trump doing the RFK slot and just like going after, just having the most groiped up campaign that you can do when it obviously was a failure for Ron DeSantis shows me that he has lost his sauce, okay? He's lost it. A lot of people forget that, like, the most successful campaign he launched was in 2016. And he launched that because he presented himself as a moderate on a lot of social issues that, like, most normal people don't give a fuck about, okay? Including being pro-LGBTQ. He was, like, anti-war, pro-LGBTQ. He was not, like, aggressively speaking about cutting entitlements and shit like that. He has just lost it, dude. He's got nothing. No NAFTA mentions. No, like, remember how the Democrats ruined the Midwest? None of that shit. The best he could scrounge up together was, I have a concept of a plan. I will say this much. Donald Trump was probably going to have a boring performance overall and not a good one, but Kamala Harris's consistent baiting worked entirely too well. That is a man who has lost his reasoning, okay? He is so goddamn narcissistic. It is his downfall. This is his own undoing, okay? By just going nutty mode. Every time Kamala Harris brought some shit up, I was like, there's no way. I was like, there's not a single, there's no reason for him to like invoke these things. There's no reason for him to even like repeat any of those things. And it was entirely too easy. Like shooting fish in a barrel, dude. It was crazy how easy it was. If I'm the Harris campaign, I'm literally showing all of his like lowlights from last night and just being like, you think this guy who couldn't shut the fuck up about himself because of a couple baits is going to be able to handle Putin? These world leaders are going to play tricks on him. They're gonna, you know, pull some keys out and start jiggling it, and he's just gonna go after that shining object. First of all, he was so goddamn emotional. You know what I mean? The idea that like he can't even do the women are emotional which is not exactly an effective strategy anyway. But like he was so hysterical, dude. Our newest ad just dropped. It's 1 hour and 40 minutes of just the debate. That's funny. She did so well that Republicans immediately started doing the conspiracies. If you want to know without a shred of doubt that Kamala Harris clobbered last night, look to what the Republicans are saying. Because if that debate was, you know, a banger for Trump, they'd be doing victory laps right now. Instead, they started crying about the moderators while the debate was going on. They haven't stopped crying about the moderators. And on top of that, Trump immediately went to the spin room and started chirping about Twitter polls. They're crying about the mods. And on top of that, they're immediately locked in on conspiracies like, oh, she had a earpiece. She had a earpiece in her ear. Like they're looking for reasons as to why she actually did so good. That's how you know Donald Trump got gutted. Okay, let's watch some of the highlights and lowlights.
Repeated false claims, prompting a fact check from moderator Lindsay Davis.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
And he refused to rule out signing a national abortion ban. On immigration, Trump trying to pin previous chaos at the border on Harris.
They're destroying the fabric of our country by what they've done.
Harris laying into Trump for urging Republicans to kill the bipartisan border deal.
But what we have in the former president is someone who would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And I'll tell you something, he's going to talk about immigration a lot tonight, even when it's not the subject that is being raised.
Trump responding by repeating a false conspiracy theory.
I will say this much. Kamala Harris's weakest moments in terms of the broadest snapshot of the conversation is disaster for Donald Trump. Kamala Harris outperformed my expectations and many other people's expectations. She outperformed her previous debates. She was on it. Okay. She came in hot. She came in assertive. You could tell that she was a little nervous in the beginning. And as time went on and her attacks, her like light jabs at Donald Trump ended up paying off massively. She got way more confident. On the aesthetic front, she was great. She was fantastic. Okay, so liberals, if you were looking for a major W, you got it. Having said that, there were obviously weak moments as well, and I will get to that in a second. But overall, broad analysis of last night. I tweeted this last night as well. If Kamala Harris's goal was to demonstrate competency and show the American broader electorate that she is here and she will be a normal leader, something that Joe Biden definitely couldn't do anymore. She did that. If her goal was to also overall show how narcissistic and petulant of a man-child Donald Trump is, she did that fantastically. I said she put up LeBron numbers on that front. However, if her goal was to get the couch voters, the non-voters, the undecideds, the real undecideds, because the mythical moderate undecided is not a real thing. That's a made-up phenomenon. It's not a real concept at all. Kamala Harris is not like converting Trumpers to her ticket, even though that's what media keeps repeating, even though that's what it seems like they're trying to do. That's not the real people, okay? The real people are people that have voted for the Democratic Party and right now are thinking, I'm probably not going to go out and vote. Those people have a bunch of different reasons for not doing so. In order to get those people to come out and vote, people that consider themselves independent, people that say that they're undecided between sitting on the couch and voting for Kamala Harris. They're not undecided between voting for Kamala Harris or voting for Donald Trump. That's only because Donald Trump was the president and everyone is already, most people, like the overwhelming majority of people that have already voted and will definitely vote this election cycle have already made up their minds on him. That is precisely the reason why it did not even reflect in a minor bump in terms of the way people perceived Donald Trump when he got shot in the head. That's how polarized people are on Trump. That's how convinced they are. They were either crying tears of happiness that he got shot and survived, or crying tears of sadness he got shot and didn't die. But nobody was like, I don't know. I think now that he got shot, I feel like I'm more on board with Donald Trump. So that's the reality for him, right? He has a very hard race in front of him. He's a very hard race in front of him, which is part of the reason why I keep saying, especially when you look at down ballot races, especially when you look at like all these other races, like Edinger Mentum calls them normal adult races. Democrats are putting numbers on the board. Okay, so the overall performance of the Democratic Party is good. The overall outlook on the Republican Party is very bad. But Kamala Harris, in order to absolutely win this race, like solidify her lead, has to bring people who are like, I am not going to vote this time around. I just don't give a shit. I don't care. Okay?
About migrants eating people's pets in Springfield, Ohio.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there have been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
Well, I've seen people on television.
Let me just say here, this is
the people on television say my dog was taken and used for food. So maybe he said that, and maybe that's a good thing to say for a city manager.
I'm not taking this from
but
television.
The people
I'm
on
taking
television
it from the city
saying
manager.
their dog was eaten by the people that went there.
I do gotta add a note on this. Kamala Harris's like off the ball performance, like off the ball movement, excellent. high marks for that too. She obviously debate prepped and knew that there was a camera on her at all times. So like there was never a moment where she was like presenting herself as like weird. There was a couple instances where she like maybe reacted in a way that I didn't necessarily appreciate, but overall she obviously was very cognizant that there is a camera on her at any given moment. And your off the ball performance is also very important. The way you express yourself, the way you like react to certain things that Trump was saying. In my opinion, she did a pretty decent job on that as well. Donald Trump, as opposed to her, literally was like angry and just constantly looking down like this. That's the type of shit that like normies do care about, even if they don't like hyper analyze it, right? They still see it because it's a vibe that you're putting out. And the vibe that Donald Trump was putting out was seething. He either looked tired or he looked angry. And that's not a good vibe to put out at all. And he didn't look angry because America is okay, that's the difference. Because 2016, Donald Trump did a pretty good job of being like, I'm angry because the establishment fucked you over. I'm angry because you're angry. We're both angry together. I'm angry for the same reasons that you're angry for. Here, he just comes across as, I'm angry because they're yelling at me. I'm angry because they're calling me out. I'm angry because she said that people leave my debates. Or people leave my rallies. So the more you can successfully show people that Donald Trump doesn't give a fuck about them and only gives a fuck about himself, the better you're going to do. And on that front, Kamala Harris did a really good job. She did. Don't worry. I'm going to still talk about the negative consequences of like maybe even Kamala's successful performance last night in a brief moment.
Again, the Springfield city manager says there's no evidence of that. Vice President Harris, I'll let you respond to the rest of what you've heard.
You talk about extreme.
The candidates also
like I wouldn't have laughed in that situation because like that's a layup. And also what he's saying is like crazy. Sure, you're deflating it, but that's a perfect opportunity for her to be like, see, this is what we mean when we say Republicans behave in a weird way, because that's like cutting, right? That cuts into Donald Trump. This is what we mean when we say Trump is being weird. That's not a real story. Not only is it not a real story, it's a very racist story. You just made that up. These are some immigrants are what makes this nation great. We're a proud nation of immigrants. And I said this last night as well. Like the way that she should have retorted on that front, even if she were to be as moderate as possible, is to basically say this is a completely made up story. Now, one must ask the question why Donald Trump chose to go with this story that is completely made up. He wants you to hate your neighbors. That's why. He wants to divide this country. We are a nation of immigrants. My parents are first generation immigrants. I'm Kamala Harris now, okay? Donald Trump's grandparents are immigrants. Every single person in this country, with the exception of Native Americans, can trace their origin back to someone who didn't used to live here. That's what makes this a strong country. And Donald Trump wants you to hate that. There are very real reasons as to why Kamala Harris should absolutely push back on the immigration stuff, even if it's not because like she wants to win the election, but because this is genuinely going to cause harm down the line. We are moving towards straight up pogroms.
sparring on foreign policy.
It is absolutely well known that these dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear they can manipulate you with flattery and favors.
The leaders of other countries think that they're weak and incompetent, and they are. They're grossly incompetent.
And getting personal, Trump asked about his statements questioning Harris's racial identity.
So
I don't know. I mean, all I can say is I read where she was not black, that she put out, and I'll say that. And then I read that she was
like, what a terrible, terrible fucking response. Like, just jumping on that fucking landmine. What an idiotic move from Trump.
black, and that's okay. Either one was okay with me. That's up to her. That's up to her.
I mean, honestly, I think it's a tragedy that we have someone who wants to be president who has consistently, over the course of his career, attempted to use race to divide the American people.
Less than 2 months until the election, Trump still refusing to concede he lost the last one.
You have said, quote, you lost by a whisker, that you, quote, didn't quite make it, that you came up a little bit short.
I said that?
Are you now acknowledging that you lost in 2020?
No, I don't acknowledge that at all.
But
I
you
said
did
that
say
sarcastically.
That.
You know that. It was said, oh, we lost by a whisker. That was said sarcastically.
Oh, wait. Why did you say, oh, I said that if you didn't say that? Because that's weird. That doesn't make no sense either. Interesting. Oh, I was just being sarcastic. I mean, he's just got nothing, dude. He's got nothing. Okay. He's got nothing on it. Recognizing that he said that it's a lose-lose. It's just a lose-lose for him across the board, because if he constantly harps on it, then he's a loser. He's just like crying over and over again about how he lost. And even like people who want to support him are probably going to look at that and be like, come on, dog, shut the fuck up. Like, Jesus Christ. Oh my God. Stop crying that you lost, you know? It's already incredibly stupid, right? Because if the Democrats are like stealing this election just like they stole the last one, why the fuck are you going out to do a goddamn debate anyway? Why are you even going out and voting? It makes no sense.
Look, there's so much proof. All you have to do is look at it, and they should have sent it back to the legislatures for approval.
The reality, there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud, and President Biden won the 2020 contest. Harris using the moment to call Trump unqualified.
Donald Trump was fired by 81 million people. So let's be clear about that. And clearly he is having a very difficult time processing that. But we cannot afford to have a president of the United States who attempts, as he did in the past, to upend the will of the voters in a free and fair election. And when you then talk in this way in a presidential debate and deny what over and over again are court cases you have lost because you did in fact lose that election, it leads one to believe that perhaps we do not have in the candidate to my right the temperament or the ability to not be confused about fact. That's deeply troubling.
Dude, the pivotal moment in last night's debate was when Kamala Harris said, people leave your rallies. He was already like pissed off from the jump, but the moment that she said, people get bored of the same old bullshit at your rallies and they leave by the end of it, something changed in his mind. Like, he just reset. Like he literally, from that point on, he just could not be normal at all. He snapped, and it was downhill from that moment. Okay, from that moment on, he was just losing it. And she kept needling him while also packaging it in a, I would say, a very expert way. She needled him in a way that he would eat the bait every single time. But she also wouldn't just do it like by directly needling him. She would also package that with like actual like issues that Trump has. And it was just terrible. It was terrible for him.
He became increasingly rattled and angry, yelling a lot of his answers as Kamala Harris tried to provoke him, tried to get inside his head, hitting some key touch points, ridiculing his crowd size, talking about how he is saying he is mocked by people around the world, talking about the long litany of former senior Trump officials, people that Donald Trump hired who now say that he is unfit for office. And Trump clearly was upset. He took the bait over and over again, was unable to really take the argument to Kamala Harris. Now, this morning, George, Donald Trump is saying this is his best debate ever, his great.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like delusional, right? This is completely delusional in a way that like cuts against like what people could see with their eyes. Even if you are a cultish MAGA loyalist, you probably still saw him not in the best light. There were people last night who were like, I'm a MAGA supporter. I still think he's going to win. But he did a terrible job last night, because he did. Like, he couldn't get any of his good points across. He had 3 major strong suits, okay? 3 major positions where he is objectively polling better than Joseph Robinette Biden and Kamala Harris. This is very important, as opposed to 2 points that Kamala Harris is better, outperforming. 2 important points that Kamala Harris is outperforming Trump on. For Kamala Harris, it's simple. Abortion. An insane. It's just like not even a question, right? Abortion is the #1 thing for the Democrats, right? It's the #1 point that they have. And Joe Biden historically was doing terrible on that front in terms of communicating, because he's Catholic and he's old and he doesn't really like abortion anyway. And Kamala Harris, both being a woman and also, you know, having that like personal connection to this insane situation that we found ourselves in, did a really good job presenting exactly what the problem is with Trump's restrictive policies that he had to take ownership over. The second point that she's good on is demonstrating competence and showcasing that he's narcissistic. That one, and also you can tie that to like democracy, preserving democracy, which was a big point for the Democrats in general. But the three key points that Donald Trump outperforms the Democrats on consistently are much more important, with the exception of abortion. Number one, immigration. Americans, due to no counter messaging from the Democratic Party and an unimaginable amount of propaganda, are very right-wing as it stands currently on immigration. Very right-wing. But for Donald Trump, all he needed to do for immigration was to simply say, you guys made this a problem. You called my supporters racist for years, and now you act like you want to build a wall. Well, we don't trust you. You've mishandled the situation, and we don't trust you. Why should anybody ever trust you on this? Like, if he were to just simply stick to a coherent message on the issue of immigration, he could present himself as like a normal person on an issue where he is obviously outperforming the Democrats on by wide margins. And it's especially a predicament for the Democrats because there's no real counter to it, because you've already adopted their right-wing framing that like immigrants are a threat to this country, which is really terrifying. But the high notes on this immigration front from the Donald Trump camp, like what people will remember this debate on the issue of immigration, is only going to be how he said they're eating the dogs. Everyone is going to remember this debate on your most powerful point as they're eating dogs. They're eating dogs. We got to do something about it. It's just, you sound like a delusional old man who's yelling at clouds. And sure, there's people in your base that love that, and they also are delusional old men, but you're not going to win anyone else like that might be in the margins. The other two issues that he's also strong on is the economy. And it was insane to me, actually, as a debate watcher, that on the issue of the economy, he immediately dialed it back and started talking about how Haitians are eating dog. Like, that's crazy. He doesn't even have policies for the economy, and he's still defeating the Democrats on this front. Think about that. Like, because people are understandably upset with the way that the economy looks like right now. That's how upset they are, that they're like, this guy's policy-less, but it doesn't matter. I still think it's like, I still think he'd be better than the Democrats, and he still fucked it up. You should have absolutely hyper-focused on that, but he didn't. Yeah, he didn't even mention no tax on tips because he forgot everything. He got so mad. He got so mad that he had nothing. There was a moment where he literally said, I have a concept of what I can do, which is so bad. And last but not least, Donald Trump outperforms Democrats on wars, okay? Especially Israel-Palestine. Part of that is because part of that is because he's not the president. He's not the president, so people do not attribute to him the failures of the Biden administration, and maybe even attribute too much failure to the Biden administration in terms of foreign policy. In 2016, he presented himself as a peaceful dove, as opposed to the failure of the Iraq War. That played really fucking well. That played really well in terms of the broader electorate. They saw him as a very different kind of anti-establishment, maybe even perhaps moderate Republican. Peace through strength type shit. He normally acts like, he's going to be a strong negotiator, and that's why he's going to cut deals. Obviously, all of this is fake and bullshit, but people do want to believe him on this front. I know you are memeing when you call him a peaceful dove. This motherfucker 100% a deranged psychopath that eludes the mafia. I'm not saying that Donald Trump is actually a peaceful dove. I'm saying that he used to present himself as that, and people responded positively to that. It's how you portray yourself that matters to a lot of people who just kind of look at the optics of the situation. And the optics of the situation on three of his major strong suits was Garbo. And then beyond that, he also flubbed the abortion one that was going to be the strongest part for Kamala Harris and was going to be very difficult for him to climb out of. He kept repeating this like idiotic notion that like everyone actually wanted Roe v. Wade to be repealed, which is utterly ridiculous. And then he even turned around and said, in places like Kentucky and Ohio, people voted more progressively on abortion, demonstrating that even in those states where people should have been demanding this overturning of Roe v. Wade, they still want to carry Roe v. Wade. They want to protect it. He absolutely fucked fucked up on that front too. My aunt literally told me that she's voting for Trump because he keeps money within the U.S. instead of starting war abroad. My auntie's a self-described Democrat in New Jersey. That's what I'm saying, though. Like, people hear that and they remember that. Like, people prefer to hear no new wars as opposed to the most lethal military. Yes, exactly. In its most reductive terms, people would rather hear someone say, I didn't start any new wars and I will end the wars that currently exist, rather than someone who says, no, we have to have wars and I'm going to have the strongest military force of all time. Let's continue.
Greatest debate ever, but there are several indications that not even Donald Trump thinks that is remotely true. The first was the way he walked out before all those reporters in the spin room last night. And this morning, he actually refused to even commit to a debate on Fox News. He doesn't seem to want to get on the stage again with Kamala Harris.
Okay, and Martha,
Exactly, and Donald Trump fired back, of course, saying that the war in Ukraine would not have happened. Vladimir Putin would not have gone in if he were president. He says the same thing about Israel, offered absolutely no evidence. And in fact, at one point, David Muir saying directly to him, do you want Ukraine to win this war? Seems like a pretty simple question, George, but he never answered that question. He also claimed that millions had died, that fake numbers were coming out of Ukraine. Kamala Harris basically just looked at him and smiled. She was asked directly, of course, about Afghanistan and whether she takes any responsibility for that disastrous pullout. She did not answer that.
Yeah, by the way, the media as well. That's why there's so many goddamn dumb in this chat as well every now and then. Oh, disastrous pullout of Afghanistan. First of all, she did take ownership over it, and she stood 10 toes down and said it was a good thing that they did that, which was correct. That was one of the best points of the entire night. Another major flub from the Democratic Party for not regularly defending one of the most defensible positions of the Biden administration. 4 presidents said they'd do it. We did. Exactly. Respect.
We need to do something with the border. It needs to be closed. I am a business owner, and this is something that I, struggle with continuously, and I have been struggling.
In Bucks County, Pennsylvania, too. I'm a business owner in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and we got to get these migrants out. What the f*** are they doing? What have they done to your business?
I agree that we need strong border controls. I don't believe that we can deport everybody in the country. It isn't physically possible, and our economy would collapse if we did.
Did it surprise any of you that this conspiracy theory about Haitian migrants and cats came up during this part of the debate? And what was your reaction to that?
Yes. Even Donald Trump, I did not think was going to go there.
I was initially had that same reaction. I was like, what was he doing?
I was shocked. I said to myself, what is he doing? So it took me back to when COVID came and he was calling it the China virus.
Wait, hold on.
That same reaction. I was like, what was he doing?
I was shocked. I said to myself, what is he doing? So it took me back to when COVID came and he was calling it the China virus.
We also talked about some of the exchanges over reproductive rights. Take a listen.
I think that Kamala stood her ground on her position. I think that she's always been more pro-choice.
He kind of avoided it. He didn't want to touch the subject.
Are you concerned about an abortion ban?
In that aspect, I am. I do believe in a woman's right to choose in certain circumstances.
She tried to emphasize that it's the voters' rights to put abortion protections and make it a state referendum. He tried his best to try and give a non-answer or deflect it, but because that's really all he could do at that point.
Most of the group was split between Harris and Trump voters who told me that the debate mostly reinforced their views about the candidates. But one voter was undecided. He said after the debate he is considering Harris, although he's not completely sold.
I've been getting slightly irritated with actually the both of them, especially with people like me as a veteran And as somebody that's kind of on the fence for either or, they're not making it easy to choose somebody that I feel as though is actually right. They're not giving any solutions to any of the problems. And from there, it just seems like it's more entertainment than it is actually debating on problems.
I mean, that was like one of the, no, I look, we say undecided voters are dumb, but like that was the one coherent person. He's not wrong. He literally is right. He's like, neither of them are addressing anything meaningful. And it's correct. Like on the issue of abortion, obviously Donald Trump did a horrible job. Kamala Harris did a great job. You know what her positions are on that. You know what his positions are on that. But he's like, as a veteran, I'm looking at some of these problems that I'm experiencing, and neither one is like what do you say to that guy? Do you say, excuse me, sir, have you not considered that this is the opportunity economy and startups are going to get $50,000 in tax breaks? Like, do you think that that's a valid position? Think about it. Think about it. Is that the actual thing that you're going to get this guy on? Why don't you start a small business, sweetie? What the fuck is wrong with you? It's the opportunity economy. Go ahead. Tell him that. No, that motherfucker probably has issues with healthcare, bro. Just like you do. Think about the problems that you experience, okay? Think about the problems that you experience on a day-to-day basis. Wouldn't it be nice to hear from a politician in terms of like addressing those problems? Rent's out of control. They say we're going to do we're going to go after landlords, corporate landlords that are price fixing. They say that. Kamala Harris says that. Didn't say it at the debate. She couldn't even get herself to say Donald Trump is a landlord. That's the type of shit that would be very meaningful for a lot of people, for a lot of voters. There are people here in the suburban safe community that bring up migrant crime during HOA meetings, and I want to throw chairs at them. These borders are an issue. Medium voters are everywhere, and it's maddening. They're so stupid and overwhelmingly white/privileged. Yeah, part of the problem is because there's no counter messaging on this front. Just like with crime, it is a panic narrative. It is collective hysteria. It is collective delusion. Like the reality and the empirical evidence does not match up with their hysterical opinions. And the reason why they have this hysterical opinion is because the Republicans have run the table on this issue and they keep pumping it over and over again. I don't want to wait for another Trump presidency for the media to remember how cruel and unusual the Trump administration was in terms of like its treatment of migrants, okay? Dragnet operations from ICE, child separation at the border as a deterrence mechanism. These were things that were objectively cruel, okay? And people hated it. People hated it so much. Why is the question you must be asking yourself. Why did they hate it? Because it was, one, insane, incredibly violent, and two, the Democrats were campaigning on it over and over again. And the media was covering it relentlessly. And that reality was reflected in the polls. That's why when you look at like 2020 polls in terms of immigration and who would handle the situation better, Biden was sometimes even beating Donald Trump. I don't want to have another abortion style situation where the Democrats don't act for years and years, and then the Republicans come back into power and they do Hitlerian policy only to have the Democrats use said Hitlerian policies to their advantage to fundraise and win another election and then not do anything about it. That's the problem. And that's precisely what the Democrats did with abortion. They waited and waited, and the Republicans kept needling on the issue of abortion. They used the Supreme Court of the United States to take away that right, and the Democrats fundraised off of it. What good is that for the red state teenager who is a victim of rape who can't go and get this medical procedure? What good is that for that person? She's just a talking point. It's disgusting. And I fear that we are bouldering towards this idiotic situation, this unimaginably cruel situation where the Republicans are going to win and then they're going to do concentration camps, and then we're going to be like, oh man, this is really bad. Abolish ICE, please. Abolish ICE. But don't worry, they'll be able to fundraise off of it, you know, and maybe win the election 8 years after we did concentration camps. Oh,